Hello everyone. So this video is going to be about Exodus. I truly believe after being taught everything that I've been taught about life in general through these last 5 years, 5 years, November, December, January, February, March, April, 4 months, and today's the 23rd. I was taught about faith, but during this time, he was teaching me how to behave. God was teaching me how to behave better than I was before, because I used to be a really angry person. Like anything that you guys go through, you know, I've gone through that and still go through it. So after going to jail this last time, I was introduced to the 10 Commandments, which during the time that he was teaching me, the 10 Commandments. So I was able to, or he showed me how to implement those things in my life, not even knowing what the 10 Commandments were, or Exodus, the story of Moses. So I'm going to be teaching that tonight. The goal is to teach the 10 Commandments, Exodus, the story of Moses, having a clear understanding of why they, a clear understanding of why the 10 Commandments were made, why things happen in our life the way that they do, and then moving forward from there, I'll make another video about Proverbs and Ecclesiastes. So with that being said, all of this is like finding your purpose. It's changing the way that you think to be of God, and then leading you up to him showing you what your purpose is. And it's daily action. It's like, you know, you hear all the time, how bad do you want it? How bad do you want a new life? How bad do you want that financial freedom? How bad do you want that house? How bad do you want the family? Like, how bad do you want your life? Like, to have a good, steady, you know, not mediocre, you know, something more than we could ever even imagine, that kind of life. So, in the beginning of Exodus, and for those of you who don't know me, I was recently in jail. I've been out of jail for 4 weeks, approximately 4 weeks. I was in there for non-compliance of probation for a DUI that I got. And during that time, the 6 months that I was there, during that time, he took me to the 10 Commandments and then gave me a really big picture of why things happen the way that they do. Gave me a really big picture of how things unfolded. It goes into Ecclesiastes, you know, God makes everything good in his own time. So I didn't even know about the 10 Commandments, and I don't know that you guys are going to know about the 10 Commandments, but maybe once you learn it, you know, like I learned it and I understood it, then it kind of makes you take a look at life differently. You know, everything under the sun is all of the same. So everything it just goes in full circle. So the only thing new under the sun is you and what you have to offer the world. What is your impact going to be? And it states it, you know, here first in Ecclesiastes, but more importantly, what we're focusing on today is Exodus and how Exodus was written. And I don't know who wrote Exodus, and please forgive me if I totally slaughter some of the names of the people that are in here, because some of them are really, really hard. So, and then So if I do end up slaughtering them, then I do apologize. I don't know how to say the names of the people. Everything that I share on here is only based on my experience and my journey and my walk with God, and how He has shown me over these last 5 years about faith and about changing my thinking to be of an image of Him. And really it starts with the story of Moses, which I didn't know about that either. You know, like you see Moses throughout the Bible, but I didn't know his story. I didn't know where he was coming from. You know, like I didn't know his story. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to start in chapter 1 of Exodus. Because this is talking about how God saved the Israelites. And this also breaks down generation from generation, because we're all descendants. So we're all related in with God. And if you place with the explanation from this book, Exodus, if you place that into today's world and how we act in today's world, then it makes more sense. So this is obviously going back many years. I don't even know. But it talks about generation after generation. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and start. Again, this is about the 10 Commandments, how they came about, and the story of Moses. So, and I'm actually not going to, I'm going to start with chapter 1, Exodus, and then I'm going to go, let's see here. And then I also encourage you guys that if there's any word that you don't understand that I say in here, in jail, I had to write a Bible dictionary for myself so that I could understand the words, because if you don't understand a word, then it can totally derail you on getting really the real story or understanding the real story. So if there's a word in here that I say that you don't understand, and I really, during a replay or, pause the video right now, go get a dictionary so that whenever you do come across a word, then that you don't understand, then you can look it up and see. And a prime example is of. Did you know that the word of means a state of being? So I didn't know that, and that was brought to my attention because of a book that I'm writing, and I didn't know if I wanted it to be, I didn't know if I wanted it to be, I didn't know if I wanted it to be the word to or the word of, so I looked up the word, both of them, to, like to, and then I looked up the word of, which means obviously state of being, which is perfect for the title of the book. So with that being said, that's just an example. If there's something that you don't, if there's a word that you don't know, then look it up. And if you have any question in your mind whatsoever, then know that that comes from God, and that you should probably look it up so you can better understand what the message is here. So I'm going to go down to chapter 1, 6. Then Joseph died, and all his brothers, and all that generation. But the people of Israel were fruitful and increased greatly. They multiplied and grew exceedingly strong, so that the land was filled with them. Now there arose a new king over Egypt who did not know Joseph. And he said to his people, "Behold, the people of Israel are too many and too mighty for us. Come, let us deal shrewdly with them, lest they multiply, and if war breaks out, they join our enemies and fight against us and escape from the land." Therefore they set taskmasters over them to afflict them with heavy burdens. They built for Pharaoh store cities. See, I'm going to slaughter these words. Pithom and Ramses. But the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied, and the more they spread abroad. And the Egyptians were in dread of the people of Israel. So, I mean, like, I don't really know a whole lot about what's going on in the world today, but that scripture right there, I just the little bit that I do know, like, we need to pray for our president. We need to pray for the USA. We need to pray for the people here in the United States because, Pharaoh is the new king of Egypt. And so he's the one that's saying, we don't want these people. There's too many of these people, and so, we don't want them. So they became slaves in their country. So, but the more they were oppressed, the more they multiplied, and the more they spread abroad. And the Egyptians were in dread of the people of Israel. So they ruthlessly made the people of Israel work as slaves, and made their lives bitter and hard service in mortar and brick and in all kinds of work in the field. In all their work, they ruthlessly made them work as slaves. See, if you want to apply that to our life right now with being entrepreneurs, or the point there is that, you eventually want to own your own business so that you don't feel like a slave in the company that you're working for, most importantly, because we're not made to really necessarily work for people, because we all have a purpose in this world. So there's lots of brick and mortar companies that are out there right now. Then the king of Egypt said to the Hebrew wife, one of whom was named Shiphrah and the other Puah, when you serve as midwife to the Hebrew woman and see them on the birth stool, if it is a son, you shall kill him, but if it is a daughter, you shall live. But the midwives feared God and did not do as the king of Egypt commanded them, and let the male children live. So the king of Egypt called the midwives and said to them, why have you done this, and let the male children live? The midwives said to Pharaoh, because the Hebrew women are not like the Egyptian women, for they are vigorous and give birth before the midwife comes to them. So God dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and grew even stronger, because God would never say, hey, you have a son, then you kill him. God would never say you have a daughter, and because it's a girl, you kill them. That's not what he was said. The midwives of the Hebrew women, they were obeying God, so therefore God blessed them, and they grew very, very strong, just like he said. And the people multiplied and grew very strong, and because the midwives feared God, he gave them families. Then Pharaoh commanded all his people, every son that is born to the Hebrews you shall cast into the Nile, but you shall let every daughter live. So chapter 2 of Exodus is this is the start of Moses' story. And you hear a lot like your passion, everything that you do is in your story. So you hear that a lot, and if you apply this to your life now, in today's time, then this is going to make sense. And I strongly, and I will do my best to explain it into the life that we're living in. Now a man from the house of Levi went and took as his wife a Levite woman. The woman conceived and bore a son, and when she saw that he was a fine child, she hid him 3 months. When she could hide him no longer, she took for him a basket made of bull bushes and dabbed it with bitumen and pitch. She put the child in it and placed it among the reeds by the river bank, and his sister stood at a distance to know what would be done to him. Now the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river while her young women walked beside the river. She saw the basket among the reeds and sent her servant woman, and she took it. When she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby was crying. She took pity on him and said, This is one of the Hebrews' children." Then his sister said to Phorah's daughter, "Shall I go and call you a nurse from the Hebrew woman to nurse the child for you?" And Phorah's daughter said to her, "Go." So the girl went and called the child's mother. And Phorah's daughter said to her, "Take this child away and nurse him for me, and I will give you your wages." So the woman took the child and nursed him. When the child grew older, she brought him to Phorah's daughter, and he became her son. Now, Phorah's daughter, Phorah being the king of Egypt, right? So like how God works in mysterious ways. And he was a boy. So when the child grew older, she brought him to Phorah's daughter, and he became her son. She named him Moses because she said, "I drew him out of the water." And it never says in here who's Moses' mother. It doesn't say anything like that. It doesn't say her name. One day when Moses had grown up, he went out to his people, looked on all their burdens, and he saw an Egyptian beating a Hebrew, one of his people, the Hebrew being one of his people. He looked this way and that, and seeing no one, he struck down the Egyptian and hid him in the sand. When he went out the next day, behold, 2 Hebrews were struggling together. And he said to the man in the wrong, "Why do you strike your companion?" And, that's like today, like there's constant fighting, constant. There's constant judging. It's just constant. And, why would you strike your own people? Why would another American strike another American? Why do we treat our fellow friends, our fellow people, the way that we do? And it was going on back then. Let me see here. He answered, "Who made you a prince and a judge over us? Do you mean to kill me as you killed the Egyptian?" Then Moses was afraid and thought, "Surely the thing is known." When Phorah heard of it, he sought to kill Moses, but Moses fled from Phorah and stayed in the land of the Midian. And he sat down by the well. Now the priest of the Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. The shepherds came and drove them away, but Moses stood up and saved them and watered their flock. When they came home to their father Reuel, he said, "How is it that you have come home so soon today?" They said, "An Egyptian delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds and even drew water for us and watered their flock." He said to his daughters, "Then where is he? Why have you left the man? Call him that he may eat bread." So Phorah finds out that Moses is an Israelite and he has been commanded to die. But now Phorah's daughter is involved, calling the boy her son. So now that Moses is getting older and he knows that he's a Hebrew, he doesn't quite know that he's a child of God. He does, but he doesn't. He hasn't. That's going to come. And Moses was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moses his daughter Zipporah. She gave birth to a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, "I have been a sojourner in the foreign land." During those many days, the king of Egypt died, and the people of Israel groaned because of their slavery and cried out for help. Their cry for rescue from slavery came up to God, of course. And God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. God saw the people of Israel, and God knew. So that's the generation after generation. So this started like the generational curses that we go through, because it starts way, way, way back when. So it's over and over and over again, unless you change it. So everything that God offered to all of your descendants, and they didn't get it, your grandparents, your mom and your dad, your grandparents, their grandparents, and so forth and so on. You understand what I'm saying? So with that being said, that's why it says, you know, I will bless you tenfold, 50-fold, 100-fold, as long as you obey my commandments. So he goes back from generation to generation, as he says. He remembers the covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and with Jacob. God saw the people of Israel, and God knew. So keep that in mind. It's important. Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian, and he led his flock to the west side of the wilderness and came to Horeb, the mountain of God. And the angel of the Lord appeared to him in a flame of fire out of the mist of a bush. This is amazing. I mean, this is truly, truly, truly amazing, and really something to really pay attention. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. Can you imagine standing there, like, and there's this bush on fire, but it's not burning? You know, it's not burning. I mean, just think about that. And Moses said, I will turn aside to see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called to him out of the bush. Moses, Moses, he said, here I am. Then he said, do not come near. Take your sandals off your feet, for the place of which you are standing is holy ground. Everywhere that we stand is holy ground because it all comes from God. And it's one of the things that is so important to understand is that everything comes from God. It is a choice that we all make, either to accept it or not to accept it. So, you know, when we do accept it, obviously, then there comes the promises, which that's a whole other video. You know, and other people, their actions shouldn't, their actions should not affect you. If anything, you stay that positive person, you know, like Moses is this very, very positive person because he is of God. So anyways, then he said, do not come near, take your sandals off. Oh yeah, you're on holy ground. And he said, I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. Those are the generations. And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look at God. I would love to look at God. I certainly would love to look at him. I really would. I mean, I don't say that negatively. I say it positively. You know, like, his power, his strength, his love is unconditional. And I would love it. Then the Lord said, I am surely seeing the affliction of my people who are in Egypt and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of the land to a good and broad land, a land flowing with milk and honey, to the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites. And now behold, the cry of the people of Israel has come to me, and I have also seen the oppression which the Egyptians oppressed them. Come, I will send you to Pharaoh, that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. But Moses said to God, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh and bring the children out of Israel out of Egypt? He said, but I will be with you. That's what he said. I will be with you. And God is with us every single day, every single day. And this shall be the sign for you that I have sent you. When you have brought the people out of Egypt, you shall serve God on this mountain. You know, I love to go and sit on top of mountains, and I haven't done it for a really, really long time. But when I was really bad into my drinking, I used to go and sit up in Craig on a mountain and drink and read the Bible. So yeah, it's crazy. Then Moses said to God, if I come to the people of Israel, I say to them, the God of your fathers has sent me to you, and they ask me, what is his name? What shall I say to them? God said to Moses, I am who I am. And he said, say this to the people of Israel, I am has sent me to you. Powerful. God also said to Moses, say this to the people of Israel, the Lord, the God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has sent to you. Again, stressing the generation after generation. Please trust in me. The Father says, please trust in me because I've been doing this for generation after generation. This is my name forever, and thus I am to be remembered throughout all generations. All generations. Go and gather the elders of Israel together and say to them, the Lord, the God of your father, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Jacob has appeared to me, saying, I have observed you and what has been done to you in Egypt. And I promise that I will bring you up out of the affliction of Egypt to the land of the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, a land flowing with milk and honey. So I'm going to bless you more than I've been trying to bless your descendants and all that, and it just hasn't been working. So I'm coming to you now, and I'm saying, look, if you do what I say, then I will bless you 100-fold. Because most likely your descendants are not living their destiny. And that's what he's trying to teach, is your destiny. So he says, I promise. And they will listen to your voice. And you and the elders of Israel shall go to the king of Egypt and say to him, the Lord, the God of the Hebrews has met with us, and now, perfect, let us go for 3 days, journey into the wilderness, that they may sacrifice to the Lord our God. But I know that the king of Egypt will not let you go unless compelled by the mighty hand. So I will stretch out my hand and strike Egypt for all the wonders that I will do in it. After that, he will let you go. So, yeah. And I will give the people the favor in the sight of the Egyptians, and when you go, you shall not go empty. But each woman shall ask of her neighbor and any woman who lives in her house for silver and gold and jewelry and for clothing. You shall put them on your sons and on your daughters, so you shall plunder the Egyptians. So he's already saying, okay, look, you know what? I'll go ahead and help free these people. Then Moses answered, this is chapter 4. Then Moses answered, but behold, they will not believe me or listen to my voice, for they will say, the Lord did not appear to you. The Lord said to him, what is that in your hand? He said, a staff. And he said, throw it on the ground. So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent, and Moses ran from it. So the staff that he's talking about is actually on ambulances. So that staff that he is talking about being on the ambulances has the stick with the serpent around it. And if you think about an ambulance, you know it's life-threatening. So the way that we think is life-threatening to being dead spiritually. So just think about that. So God is showing Moses his power on top of showing Moses his power. So he's teaching Moses what God has put him on this earth for. From the beginning of his time, he had a rough time because he was hidden. And then he was Pharaoh tried to kill him when he found out that he was a Hebrew. So he has all of these different things that are happening to him. But now God has came to him. He said, okay, well, this is what I want you to do. And Moses says, why are they going to listen to me? Why do we really listen to our pastors or people of the church? Or do we listen to our inner being, of who God is trying to teach us to be? Are we listening to those things to where we could be putting forth that energy out into the world? Are we listening to him, where he's trying to teach us our purpose, or are we just kind of living our life? We're living a mediocre life. And so with that being said, I'm going to continue. So he threw it on the ground, and it became a serpent. But the Lord said to Moses, put out your hand and catch it by the tail. So he put out his hand and caught it, and it became a staff in his hand. Then they may believe that the Lord, the God of their fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob has appeared to you. Again, generation. Again, the Lord said to him, put your hand inside your cloak. A cloak is something that covers you, like a robe, but I think it also covers your head. And he put his hand inside the cloak, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous like snow. So like he's teaching them, like, okay, so now you're obeying me. This is what's going to happen. You know, when you do obey me, he's teaching them what he's going to go and teach Phorah of what God is telling him to say. Oh, let's see. Then God said, put your hand back inside your cloak. So he put his hand back inside his cloak, and when he took it out, behold, it was restored like the rest of his flesh. So again, he's listening. He's teaching him. Just like he teaches us, like something happens after, you know, something happens after it happens, and it happens, and it happens, and we're still not trusting, and we're still not doing, and we're still not trusting. You know, yet God just continuously loves us unconditionally. And we continue to do what we want to do and live by the flesh. And that goes into Romans for sure. We are not made to be perfect. We are all going to have, you know, our ups and our downs, our struggles and stuff. But it's like, when are we going to choose to listen? Here is his power, and I'm sure that you've already seen his power in your life. I know I have, and I don't doubt that anybody else has either. It's just a matter of being open-minded to it, and it's a matter of accepting it and believing it. Like, don't blame him for it, you know, for he gave it to you, so give it back to him. If they will not believe you, God said, or listen to the first sign, they may believe the latter sign. If they will not believe even these two signs or listen to your voice, you shall take some water from the Nile and pour it on dry ground, and the water that you shall take from the Nile will become blood on the dry ground. But Moses said to the Lord, "Oh my Lord, I am not eloquent." I can totally relate to this. I am not eloquent either in the past or since you have spoken to your servant, but I am slow of speech and of tongue. Then the Lord said to him, who has made man's mouth? Who makes him mute or deaf or seeing the blind? It is not I, the Lord. So Moses is saying, like, wait a second here. I don't have the powers that you have. You know, I don't have the gifts that you have. And why are you choosing me to do your work when nobody's going to listen? How many times have we said that? You know, I mean, how many times, where can you place that in your life now? You know, just think about it. Now, therefore, go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you what you shall speak. So he's going to teach Moses. He's going to tell Moses. So in my experience through my journey with God is that he can control what people think and what comes out of their mouth. And I have several different stories about that and why I know that to be true to this day. I could tell you just like so many stories on how he was teaching me how to trust him and how to have faith, that he can control the way that people think. And when he wants to speak to you, then he uses people to do that, you know? So something else I'm sure that you can relate to what I'm saying there. I'm going to read this again. Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth and teach you what you shall speak. It's very simple, but it's hard because we live in flesh, you know, but he's wanting to take control. But he said, oh my Lord, please send someone else. He's like, Moses is being completely ungrateful and like, you want to give me all of this stuff and all of these powers. And Moses is like, wait a second here. Why are you telling me this? Why are you picking me? I don't understand. Why am I so special? I love this stuff. It fires me up. I love it, like, because I can relate to it, I guess. And I like it. I like to talk about it. So then the Lord gets angry And then the anger of the Lord was kindled against Moses, and he said, "Is there not Aaron, your brother, the Levite? I know that he can speak well. Behold, he is coming out to meet you, and when he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. You shall speak to him and put the words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth and with his mouth, and will teach you both what to do." So, like, Moses is feeling so insecure about this whole situation. So God knows that he's feeling insecure about the situation, so he puts somebody else in his life and knows the fear that Moses is having, that he cannot speak the way that he's supposed to. You know, God is like, okay, well, don't you have your brother Aaron? You know, why are you doubting me? I'll put somebody else in your life that can do the speaking. He shall speak for you to the people, and he shall be your mouth, and you shall be as God to him. And take in your hand his staff, with which you shall do the signs. Moses went back to Jethro, his father-in-law, and said to him, "Please let me go back to my brothers in Egypt to see whether they are all still alive." And Jethro said to Moses, "Go in peace." It's all God. And the Lord said to Moses in Midian, "Go back to Egypt, for all of the men who were seeking your life are dead." So he took all of his enemies. You know, God killed all of his enemies because Moses was listening to him, and he was doing what he was told. So all of his enemies that wanted to kill him, they ended up dying. So Moses took his wife and his sons and had them ride on a donkey and went back to the land of Egypt. And Moses took the staff of God in his hand. And the Lord said to Moses, "When you go back to Egypt, see that you do before Pharaoh all the miracles that I have put in your power. But I will harden his heart. I will harden his heart so that he will not let the people go. Then you shall say to Pharaoh, 'Thus says the Lord, Israel is my firstborn son. And I say to you, let my son go, that he may serve me. If you refuse to let him go, behold, I will kill your firstborn son.'" You know, I might have to cut this short, you guys, because my battery's getting low. I'm going to try just to read down to chapter 5, and then I'm going to stop, charge my phone, and then I'll come back. So at the lodging place on the land, on the way, the Lord met him and sought to put him to death. Then Zipporah took a flint and cut off her son's foreskin and touched Moses' feet and said, "Surely you are a bridegroom of blood to me." So he let him alone. It was then that he said, "A bridegroom of blood, because of your circumcision?" The Lord said to Aaron, "Go into the wilderness to meet Moses." So he went and met him at the mountain of God and kissed him. And Moses told Aaron all the words of the Lord with which he had sent him to speak, and all of the signs that he commanded him to do. Then Moses and Aaron went and gathered together all the elders of the people of Israel. Aaron spoke all of the words that the Lord had spoken to Moses, and did the signs in the sight of the people. And the people believed. And when they heard that the Lord had visited the people of Israel, and that he had seen their affliction, they bowed their heads and worshiped. So we're at Moses is getting ready to go into the land. He now knows that all of his enemies are dead. He has his brother now who's going to help him speak. He has a staff, which is the power of God. And God is teaching Moses not only God's power on us, but teaching Moses the gifts that he has given him. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end this video right now. I'm going to pick up on chapter 5 of Exodus and continue going on here in about 30 minutes. So thank you for watching, and I appreciate you all. And so, Father, I just thank you for everything that you do to us, for us, and with us. In the name of Jesus, I pray. Amen.